Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to those who are visiting for the first time. Today we're going to do another watercolour painting, quite a loose painting, free. We're not going to be sort of trying to paint in loads of detail. We're going to get the overall shapes in, and we're going to keep it fresh and lively. That's my objective, and that's my objective every time I sit down to do a painting, is not to get bogged down in detail, but to use the opportunity to capture some light in the scene, the colours, and just a sense of place and time. I'm not worried about painting every bit of detail, every twig, every branch, every blade of grass. I just want to get in the overall colours, the overall shapes, and in my opinion that's the best place for beginners to start. Once you've mastered that, you can then move on to introducing lots more detail, if that's what you want to do. Anyway, we're going to be painting this little watercolour here. It's going to be a lot bigger in my real painting, but it's a place called Diglas Lock, not far from where I live. It's a place I go down with my sketchbook and paint frequently. So okay, I'll get my paint sourced out and we'll get started. Okay, there we have our simple drawing. It's a very loose outline of the sketch. I've added a bit more in the foreground because I've painted it so many times I know what's there. Very loose outline. Like I said in the intro, we're going to keep it very simple today. We're not going to worry about any detail really. Just block in the colours and see what we end up with. And I'm going to keep the sky really simple today. I'm just going to do a very simple blue sky. No clouds, no nothing. If you want to see clouds, and this is the first video of mine you've landed on, you can search my videos, go to my channel, search my videos, and you can see lots of how I do clouds and skies. But this is just going to be a simple blue sky. A bit of cobalt and a bit of cerulean blue. Just going along, like so. Keep it very simple. And if you're a beginner, why not try one of these? Right, as I get down the horizon, towards the horizon, I'm just going to add a little bit of magenta, just to add a little bit of interest to the sky. Doesn't matter if I go over the trees, that's fine. And I go down to there. Now, for a beginner watercolour, if you're starting and you just want to keep it simple, that's what you want to be looking at. Just a simple blue sky. And then once you've done one of those, you can then move on to a slightly more difficult sky next time round. But that is what you want to do. Now we've done the sky, we're going to do the water. Now in this case we're going to keep the water very simple. We're going to reflect the sky colour in the water. So basically we're going to paint the same colours in the sky in the water. Let's go some blue. Like I said, this is a really simple painting. The most difficult part probably was the drawing, but that was pretty simple. We're just going, filling in the shape. Remember, like when you're a kid, you used to do the colouring books. You're doing the same here. We're just keeping it simple. We're just going to go around the reflections for the time being. Actually, I'm going to go over the reflections today, like that, just to keep it even more simple. And I'll show you how we can put those reflections back in later on when it's dried. So we'll just take it all the way up the page. And we've got a simple, we've got some nice water. We can make it more interesting later. There we go. And there's our water. So we've got sky and we've got water. And how long did that take? A couple of minutes. And we've covered 2/3 of the page. Now we're going to go on to paint the roof of the cottage. I've taken some more cobalt blue, a little bit of burnt sienna, and I've made a grey. I'm going to use that for the roof. First of all, I'm going to start with the chimneys. And the chimneys are a mixture of burnt sienna, cad red and a little bit of cad yellow. That's a mixture I like. There are different ones you can use, but that's the one I like. Let's put the chimneys in. Very simple. We're going to just drop the chimneys in one at a time. Like I said, we're going to keep this really simple, as if it's your first watercolour painting. There's one, there's two, there's three, there's four. Now while they're still wet, I'm just going to get some raw sienna. There's some little chimneys, wrong colour. I was getting burnt umber. Oh no, I wasn't. I was getting yellow ochre. Okay. Now we're just going to put the little chimneys in on top. I'm not worrying too much. It's our first painting. We're going to be really relaxed. Now, I've got my bluey grey for the roof. I'm just going to paint the roof in, just as if I'm using a colouring book. I'm just blocking in the shape. I don't mind if I touch the bottom of the chimneys. I don't care. It doesn't bother me if the chimney colour runs into the roof colour. That's fine by me. A bit more paint. And we nearly have the roof done. There we go. Okay, I've mixed the colours for the trees in the background. Basically, I've used in this one cad yellow. This one with some cobalt blue. Put more in. This one it's the same mix, but there's more yellow, so there's more cadmium yellow than blue. Here I've made like a rusty orange colour up out of burnt sienna and cadmium, and this one I've put some cobalt blue and magenta. Now I'll probably use all those in my trees, and we'll see how it goes. Start by using my little mister bottle just to mist the top of the tree line. I don't really want it too many hard lines. It just softens it slightly. Okay, I get some green on my brush, and I'm just gonna put that, sketch in the trees, using the side of my brush to try and get some broken edges. So I don't want it looking too rounded or smooth. I'm just going to take that down, painting around anything I want left white, obviously. I want that white. Now we're going to introduce a bit of the orangey colour. I know it's a bit dry there. A bit more. The foliage is a bit more brown. Very careful using the tip of your brush. Get a brush that points up well. I'm just going to get some blue. This is some blue on my brush. I'm not mixing the colours, I'm letting them mix on the page. So I'm just putting a bit of that blue in there. I'm carefully painting around the house. I'll take a bit of the brighter green again and just bring that in over the house. Wherever you find foliage. What I might do, if it's helpful, I'll put this picture that I took with my camera on my website, and if anybody wants to go and use it to have a go at this painting, they can. And then they can ask me questions and I'll know what they're talking about, because I know the picture, I know the painting. So we're just working our way along nice and slow. So we've done that bit. We'll be coming back to that later and doing some more work to it, but that's enough for the time being. A funny little tree here. Just sketch that in. Some nice bright foliage there. And there. We'll just go over that tree. We'll just go over this one too. Sorry, sometimes I lose my train of thought and I'm miles away. And I think I'm just talking to myself. I forget the camera's on. Okay, so now we'll do the trees at the back. That's at the back. So we'll just make them slightly bluer because we want them to sit back a bit. That's too blue. Add a bit more yellow to that mix. There we go. We're just using a big brush. We're not fiddling around. We're just trying to paint in. We're getting in the overall shapes. That's all we're doing. We're trying to get in the overall shapes. Then once we've got those in and the first wash in, we can go back and we can add more interest to it later. But you won't feel so intimidated because the white paper's gone. Just cut neatly around the chimney if you can. There. Okay, we'll leave it like that for a minute. Oh, actually we won't. We'll just there's a little bit of grass across here. We'll get that in. It's quite cool. This side here is cool, this side here is warm. So I'm going to use more raw sienna where it's warmer and there's more light than I will where it's cooler. So I'm just going to block it in. Just using the brush. I'm going to go over the lock gates as well. These are the lock gates. We can alter the colour of that. Now as I come around this corner, I'm going to start adding more blue. Well, I'm start adding blue to the mix just to cool it down. And where it's down by the water, just add some on the lock gates. And that's kind of blocked that area in. And we're just going to leave that simple. What we could do at this stage, if we wanted to, is we could start putting the reflection in. We could go over the water here and we could just put in the starts of our reflection like that, nice and gentle. So basically we've started to put the reflection in of that wall there, and we'll just do the same on the other side. It's warmest and the sun's on it over here, so we're just using, basically I'm just using raw sienna. Now if I was painting it a bit more, you know, a bit more detail, maybe I'd use a few other colours, but for starting out this is perfect. Where it curls round the corner and it starts to go off at a different angle, I've added more cerulean blue to the mix. Like that. We can paint the shadow in, the reflection, sorry. Paint reflection into the water, like that. And the same here. That kind of goes all the way over there. So we've painted in less than a couple of minutes we've painted the walls. Yeah, we've got to go back and put some shadows in, but we've started the process of painting the walls, and we've put in the reflection in places, but we'll go back to that in a minute and do a little bit more. We're just going to put a wash of colour over the front of the cottage because it's not white, it's like it's a funny colour actually. I can never kind of work out what colour it is. It's like a pale greeny, yellowy. I just think it's some paint they had left over and they've used it. But anyway, I'm just going to use a very pale wash of raw sienna and cerulean blue just to paint over the front of the cottage. Remember, your colours always dry lighter than they appear. Yeah, what I mean is when they're wet they always look darker, but as they dry they actually become white, become a lot lighter. Just filling it in, just cadmium yellow with a bit of cobalt blue, and just blocking it in. There we go. Just to make it a bit more interesting, we can add some bit of variety to it. As we go down the front here, just drop some, just so it's not all one green. There we go. And that's the grass done. Okay, now this end of the cottage is in shadow, so we're going to put a nice shadow on the end of the cottage, and for that I'm just using cobalt blue, a touch of magenta and a little bit of yellow ochre. So here we go. I'll put a little bit more yellow ochre in that now, just all so it's not too blue. A little bit more yellow ochre. So we've got that end of the cottage in shadow. Now there's a piece of there's shadow being cast down this side of the wall as well. Put the window in, and there's shadow being cast just on this part of the roof. So we'll just pop that in also. There's shadow being cast on this side of the roof, so we'll have to paint in this side of the roof in shadow, like that. And under the eaves of the building, of the house, they'll be in shadow also. So we're going to just go along. A bit too dark really, that was. Oh, not happy with that, so we're going to lift that out, soften it slightly. It's just a little bit too strong. And the shadows under that part of the eave of the cottage. Just marking a bit where the windows are. So what you do when you're painting shadows, you really have to look at the painting or look at the subject matter to decide where the shadows are. There we go. Before those shadows dry, I'm just going to mark in where the gutters are. I'll do that when it's still slightly wet, because then the dampness softens it slightly. Bit of woodwork design on there, just suggests that. Do a bit more of the burnt umber for the guttering. That side's in deep shadow. So there we go. Right, now the chimneys need to be put in. The shadow side of the chimney. So I'm just going to use a bit of cobalt and a bit of burnt sienna, just to a bit more burnt sienna, just to drop in down there, there, there,
and there, just to mark in the shadow sides on the chimneys. Okay, now we're going to carry on with the trees, and we're going to put some more detail in the trees here. And the back ones are slightly darker than the ones in the foreground, so I'm just going to paint my way. Using my little sword liner helps me to get the detail at the top of the tree. So I'm just adding various mixtures of cobalt blue, cadmium, a little bit of magenta, just to make it grey out slightly. I'm just going to keep the shapes very simple. Switching over my brushes when I need to get to the top, to sort of indicate the tops of the trees. Just using the top of my brush again. You can see that brush there. Let me try and show it to you. It's a really useful little brush. They call it a sword liner. Well, actually they call this one a dagger, but it's like a sword liner. And you get really good detail on the top. If anybody wants any more information on those, just ask and I'll answer your questions. I don't want it quite as strong. And again, I'm just keeping the overall shapes very simple. I'm not trying to paint them in any great detail. There we go. So we'll move down to the bottom of the page here, and we just look again at the picture and see where we need to go. It's going to start indicating here where the lock gates are. Again, I can't be painting all that in detail. I'm just looking at the picture and I'm going to approximately imagine where the darks are. So the gates come down here. I've got to remember to leave there's lots of little white bits that I want to leave, because they actually do help make sense of the picture. Some are sort of, if I try and paint every bit, there we go. So it's just kind of not painting everything, just as I keep repeating myself, I guess. Just look at the overall shape, squint your eyes and keep it really simple. Don't make life hard for yourself. Now this is where the lock gates are. I'm just coming in there. There's some nice shadows down here, so we'll just come to that point, meet up. And this is just a mix of burnt umber and cobalt blue. I find perfect for this type of thing. When you start putting your darks in, the painting itself will start to come together. Now there's a nice shadow that's cast down here. I'm just going to pop that in. I'm going to put the reflections in the water. Well, that's it. Now when you look at reflections, often there's lots of things going on. Because this is like, I'm trying to show you from a beginner's point of view, we're going to keep it very simple, and we're not going to you know, put every little change in the reflections. We're just going to keep it a couple of little marks down the side there, and they need to be put in as reflections. So just carry them on, give them a little wiggle to show it's water. Like that. Soften bottoms a bit. There. So basically that's it. We'll come, when that's dry, we'll come back and put, I could, you know, you could mess about with this a lot more, but we're trying to sort of make it uncomplicated, how you can get a good result painting a picture like this but without going into too much detail. Windows in on the house now, and I'm just going to use some cobalt blue and a bit of raw sienna to make a grey colour. Being careful I don't put my hands in there because it's still wet. And it's just suggestions, it's not actually painting it in. There's a doorway there, a window on that side. So we'll leave that for a minute, and we'll come back to that. Actually there's a doorway just here, you can just see. Okay, now we'll just put the reflection in of the cottage. I can just see the tops of the roof in the water. So we'll just drop those in. Again, I'm just using some burnt umber and some cobalt blue. A little bit more blue in it. And I'm just going to keep them wiggly wobbly. So it kind of looks like reflections. We've got the darks in. We'll just put the chimneys in as well. Obviously when you get reflections in water, they kind of dull the colours down a bit. You don't get the same vibrancy in the colours that you see in real life. Well, that are actually there. That is real life, but okay, now I'm just going to put in this post, this mooring post here, and for that I'm going to use a mixture of raw sienna and raw umber, cobalt blue. Now the light's coming in from this way, so I want to make sure I come down there, like so. And when that's dried, what I can do now but the top is darker, so I'm just going to paint that in now, and then when that dries I'll put the shadow in down the side of the post. Yeah, a little bit darker, so just block it in, nothing, just a mixture of raw sienna and cerulean blue, good for stonework, I think so, and block that in. Oh, made a mistake there, too much blue. Lift it out. I quite like it. And just where it bends around this corner, just soften it slightly. And that's that. And we want to then darken it slightly on this end. We know we've got some posts down there we want to leave, so I'm going to kind of paint round them very loosely. So just going to, the post that comes down there, there's one that comes down there. There. And there's some posts that run across here. Well, I'm not sort of worrying too much. I'm just blocking them in. Drop a bit of darker pigment in there. Carry this through to the shadow. Oh, can you hear the drilling outside? God. And we want to come down here, put some more, water's quite deep here, and it's quite a bit darker, so just blocking that in. And a few stones along the top. We'll just indicate those by splodges of with our brush. Now there's some warmer stone in there, so I'm just going to use some burnt sienna to indicate the warmer stone. Just touch the stone above, and where there's blocks, when there's sort of big bricks in the wall, I'm just using the side of my brush to indicate them. That waterline will soften slightly. But you know, this is my interpretation of the painting. When you paint it, you might want to do it just, you know, bearing in mind some of the tips I've shown you, you know, about how to keep it simple and not to worry too much about it. Just enjoy painting it. That's the secret. not to worry too much. These are like flagstones. Well, what I'm doing, I've got big blocks set into the wall, so we'll just sort of indicate them like that. And we're getting somewhere there really. We just need this to dry, then we'll come back and put some final darks in, and we'll call it finished. Okay, we'll just add a bit more shadow to the reflection where it's on the building. We're just meeting it up. That wasn't very clever. That's a bit too blue really. So I'm going to take a bit of green. Just dull it down a bit. That'll do. What else was I going to do? I was going to put the shadow down the side of the post. Just a bit of cobalt blue, burnt sienna. And I'm just going to run that down. Side of the post. There. What else needs doing? There's a little measure stick to measure the height of the water. So I'm going to pop that in. That's just here. And again, that will cause a little reflection. So don't forget to put it in. And just where the water line is here, it's worth just putting in a bit of darker inside here, inside this gate. Very dark down there. Got some stones that come across. But that's about it really. Oh, I'll just put my arm in it. So that's where you've got to be careful, don't put your hand in it. There's a little branch on there. So I'm not. I just put those remaining branches in. And that's it. We're finished. Okay then, so there we go. We have our finished painting. Okay, a pretty simple approach to watercolour painting. You know, we just blocked in the sky with some blue and put one wash down for the greens, and then darkened it with the same colours, cobalt blue, cadmium yellow, and a touch of crimson or red. Then we blocked in the water. We used raw sienna and cerulean on the walls of the canal. It was, you know, it's quite simple really. If you break it all down into stages and you work out how you're going to be going along in your mind, have a little plan, you can make a very simple watercolour look quite effective. But I hope you enjoy watching it anyway, and please leave any messages and or comments, sorry, and I'll do my best to answer them. Really happy to answer them, that's why I'm doing it. I enjoy the interaction with other people. So, you know, comment and subscribe, give it a thumbs up, visit my website, there's a link there, and I've also got a Facebook page you can visit and like that if you feel like you want to. But thanks again, and come along for another video painting demonstration this week sometime, hopefully. I'll probably get another video on in a couple of days, and hopefully this will be one where I'm actually outside painting. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I'll be chatting to you all again soon. Bye for now.